All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So this time around, we've got a whole stack of stuff that you've all sent in, and it's all about, well, how we see things. Like how we actually make sense of the information that's thrown at us.
Especially visual information, right? I mean, in this day and age, it feels like we're constantly bombarded with charts and graphs and infographics, all promising to make complex things easier to understand.
Totally. And that's kind of the core of what we want to dive into today. Because sometimes those visual shortcuts, those supposedly helpful visuals, they can actually lead us astray.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what makes the research you highlighted so fascinating, right? This whole idea of misleading data visualizations. Because it's not just a design quirk, it's a real problem, especially now when we're all swimming in this sea of information.
Exactly. We're talking about a deep dive into how those visuals can sometimes, well, trick our brains, and more importantly, how we can all become a little bit or maybe a lot more savvy about what we're seeing.
Right, like how can we sharpen our visual BS detectors, so to speak? And I think that's really the mission here, to figure out how to be more discerning viewers of data, especially when it's presented visually. You know, the article you sent, the one titled Exploring Educational Approaches to Addressing Misleading Visualizations, well, it's pretty meaty. You know, it actually reviewed 26 different studies, all focused on this very issue.
Wow, 26 studies, so they weren't messing around. Okay, so let's jump in. One of the first things that struck me was that misleading visualizations, they're not just a minor annoyance, right? I mean, they're a legitimate problem. This isn't just about a chart being a bit confusing, is it?
Not at all. I mean, think about it, right? If people are basing your understanding of important issues, you know, their decisions, their actions, on visuals that are flawed or even intentionally distorted, well, that can have some pretty huge consequences.
Oh, for sure. We're talking everything from personal choices like health decisions to how we understand these big societal trends, right?
Right. I mean, the impact is real. And the article tackles this through, well, something called graph comprehension, which might sound a bit jargony, but
Yeah, graph comprehension. So what is that exactly?
it's basically a framework for understanding how we actually process information when we look at a graph. Like how our eyes move, what we pay attention to, how we extract meaning from those visual elements. And this helps us analyze where things can go wrong, you know, when a visual is designed or presented in a way that can, well, mislead us.
Okay, so it's like a way to break down the process of actually reading and understanding visuals, right?
Exactly. So then within this framework, the big question is why, right? Why do our interpretations sometimes go off the rails?
Hmm.
And the article really zoomed in on two key areas where these misinterpretations, these misunderstandings tend to crop up.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are those two areas?
All right, so the first is all about what's going on within the visualization itself, right? The actual design choices, the way the information is presented visually. And they call these the graphical elements.
Graphical elements. Okay, got it. And the second one?
Well, the second area has to do with everything surrounding the visual,
Mm.
the context in which it's presented. This includes things like the title, the accompanying text, basically anything that can influence how we interpret what we're seeing. And these are referred to as the contextual elements.
Okay, that makes sense. So you've got the visual itself and then everything around it that can shape our understanding. So let's dig into those graphical elements first. Even without seeing the specific examples from those 26 studies, what are some of the design choices that can really mess with our heads, based on what we generally know about good and bad data visualization?
Oh, yeah. Well, there are a bunch of classic tricks, right? And one that's really common is messing with the axes,
Hmm.
especially on bar charts. Like, you know, if the vertical axis doesn't start at zero,
Oh, yeah, that one drives me crazy.
right, it's like suddenly even small differences in the height of those bars can look like massive changes.
Yeah.
And our brains are wired to compare those lengths, and uh, well, we kind of get fooled by the visual exaggeration.
I know, right? Like, you see this chart with a super steep upward trend and you think, oh my gosh, things are exploding. But then you look closely at the numbers and it's actually just a teeny tiny increase.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're visually shouting a story that the numbers themselves are just kind of whispering, you know?
Yeah, totally. So, messed up axes, that's one. What else?
Well, another big one is picking the wrong type of chart for the data, like trying to cram way too much information into a pie chart.
Oh, yeah, pie charts can be tricky.
Right, like if you have too many slices, it becomes impossible to compare them accurately. Or even worse, those 3D charts. Have you ever seen those?
Ugh. Yeah, the ones where the bars in the back look shorter just because of the angle, even if the data is the same.
Exactly. It's like they add all this visual complexity, but it doesn't actually make things clear. It just distorts our perception.
Yeah, those 3D charts are just noise disguised as data. Okay, so we've got messed up axes, wrong chart types.
Mm.
What else can trip us up visually?
Oh, color and scale can be big culprits too. Like if the colors are inconsistent or just poorly chosen, it can be really hard to tell the difference between data points, or it might even create a false sense of pattern or trend.
I see. So, like, if you're looking at a graph with bars that are all slightly different shades of blue, it can be hard to tell them apart, right?
Right. Or let's say you're looking at an infographic and the size of the images doesn't actually match the data they represent. Like a tiny picture for a huge problem and vice versa. That can totally mislead us.
Yeah, our brains are wired to pay attention to those visual cues, like size and color. And if those cues are messed up, well, our understanding of the data gets messed up too. So it all comes down to these little visual tricks that exploit how our brains process information, right?
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've talked about those graphical elements, the stuff inside the visual itself. Now let's move on to those contextual elements, the things around the visual. How can the way a visualization is presented, the whole framing of it, how can that influence how we interpret it?
Oh, the framing is huge. Take, for example, the title of a graph. If the title is biased or, tries to push a particular interpretation.
Oh, yeah, like when they use words like skyrocketing or plummeting to describe a trend that's actually pretty minor.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
bam.
Yeah.
They hit you with this emotionally charged language that immediately shapes how you see the data, even before you've really had a chance to look at it closely.
Right. It's like they're setting the stage, creating a narrative before you even get to the main act. Sneaky.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not just titles. Think about the text that goes along with the visual, the annotations, the little blurbs of explanation. That stuff can be really influential too.
Oh, yeah. Like if they highlight certain data points while ignoring others, or if they use specific words to emphasize certain trends.
Right. They can basically steer you towards a particular conclusion, even if that conclusion isn't really supported by the full picture, the full data set.
So it's like they're cherry picking information, but doing it visually, right?
Exactly. They're telling a story with the data, and sometimes that story isn't exactly objective.
So we've got to be wary of both the visual tricks themselves and the narrative that's built around them.
Absolutely. It's like a double whammy
Yeah.
of potential manipulation.
It's kind of unsettling when you think about it. I mean, we rely so much on visuals to be objective, to give us the facts straight.
Oh, yeah. It can be really concerning, especially with the amount of visual information we encounter every day.
Totally. But, the research didn't just focus on the problems, right? They also looked at ways to combat these misleading tactics.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that there were two main categories of interventions.
Oh, yeah. So they basically grouped these interventions into two buckets. The first one is all about providing external aids to viewers, like tools or information that can help us spot those misleading elements we've been talking about.
Okay, so external aids, like what kind of stuff are we talking about?
Well, for example, think of like a checklist, right? A checklist that reminds you to look closely at the axis, to think critically about the type of chart that's being used, to watch out for those biased titles. Just simple things to keep in mind when you're looking at a visual.
Right, like a set of guidelines to help us spot those red flags. Makes sense.
Yeah. And then, there's the possibility of even more sophisticated tools. Like, imagine software that could actually scan a visualization and point out potential distortions or anomalies. Like, hey, this y-axis is truncated, so be careful about how you interpret the difference between these data points.
Oh, wow, that would be amazing. It's like having a built-in BS detector for data visualization.
Right. I mean, that kind of technology could be really powerful.
Okay, so we've got those external aids. Now, what was that second category of interventions again, the ones that don't involve external tools?
Right. So the second approach is all about enhancing viewability. Equipping people with the skills and the mindset to engage more critically with data visualizations themselves.
Okay, so more like internal tools, like training our brains to be better data detectives.
Exactly. It's about empowering the viewer, right?
Mhm.
And the article specifically talked about the importance of something called additional interaction for reflection, which might sound a bit academic.
Yeah, additional interaction for reflection. What exactly does that involve?
Well, it's about encouraging people to go beyond just passively looking at a visualization, right? It's about prompting them to actively question the assumptions behind the data, to think about alternative ways the data could be presented, to explore different interpretations.
I see. So it's not just about seeing the visual, it's about really engaging with it, questioning it, digging deeper.
Right. And a big part of that is moving beyond just that first impression. Because, as we've seen, that initial gut level reaction can be easily manipulated.
Yeah, it's like we need to slow down, take a step back, and really analyze what we're seeing before we jump to any conclusions.
Absolutely. And this kind of active engagement forces us to think more analytically, right? It's like
Yeah.
instead of just relying on that quick visual impression, which might be misleading, we're forced to consider the why, the how, and the what ifs.
It's like developing a critical lens for visual information, similar to how we might critically evaluate a written argument,
Right.
right? Questioning the author's biases, the sources they cite, that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. It's about applying those critical thinking skills to the realm of data visualization.
This is so interesting. It's like we're talking about developing a whole new kind of visual literacy, which seems pretty essential in this day and age.
It really does.
And I think the article also pointed to some areas where more research is needed, right? Like some gaps in our understanding of how to combat these misleading visualizations.
Oh, yeah. And a big one they highlighted was exactly what we were just discussing, how to effectively teach people to actively interact with data visualizations. Because, while we have some understanding of how those external aids can be helpful and some initial ideas about how to encourage critical thinking, there's still a lot we don't know about the best ways to actually teach these skills. Yeah.
So it's not just about telling people to be more critical, it's about figuring out the most effective methods to train our brains to be better visual data processors.
Exactly. It's like, okay, we know that active engagement is key, but how do we actually foster that? What are the specific strategies that can help people move beyond that first, potentially misleading impression and really dig into the data?
Yeah, that's a big question. And, it really connects to what a lot of our listeners are striving for, which is to gain a thorough understanding of information without feeling overwhelmed. Because if you can develop those skills, if you can really learn to interact with and question visual data, you're less likely to be swayed by those misleading presentations.
Absolutely. It's about empowering people to become more confident, more critical consumers of information.
Okay, so let's try to pull out some of the key takeaways from all this research. What are the most important things to remember when we encounter data visualizations in our daily lives?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's crucial to recognize that misleading visualizations are a real problem, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a minor annoyance. It can have a real impact on our understanding of the world.
Right. So approach visual data with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Yeah, exactly. Don't just take it at face value. And second, we need to remember that those misinterpretations can come from both the design of the visualization itself and the way it's presented, the whole context surrounding it.
So look critically at both the visual itself and everything around it.
Right. And third, the good news is that there are things we can do to become more resilient to these misleading tactics, right?
Right.
There are those external aids that can help us spot potential problems, and there are ways to improve our own critical thinking skills.
Okay, external tools and internal tools. Got it.
Yeah. And then I think that last point about the need for more research on how to teach active engagement, that's really important too. That's where a lot of the potential for long-term improvement lies.
It's about going beyond just passive viewing,
Right.
actively engaging with the data, questioning it, and really thinking critically about what we're seeing.
Absolutely.
This has been so insightful. It's like we need a whole new set of skills for navigating the information landscape, a new kind of visual literacy.
I agree. I agree.
So as we wrap up, here's a question I want to leave you with, our listener. Thinking about all these misleading techniques and the importance of active engagement, what's one type of visual data that you encounter regularly where you might now apply this deeper level of scrutiny? Maybe it's a chart you see in a news article or a graph in a presentation at work. What's one visual that you're now going to look at a little bit differently?
That's a great question. Because it's not just about the theory, right? It's about applying these concepts to our everyday lives.
Exactly. And hopefully this deep dive has given you some new tools and some new perspectives to help you do just that. Because ultimately, it's about feeling more confident, more empowered when you're faced with that deluge of visual information. So thanks for joining us on the deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.